Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guest for episode 165 is Dave Neabore. You may know him as the bassist for the rap rock, funk rock act Dog Eat Dog over the last 30 plus years. In recent times, Dave has been stepping out to create a nice little solo career for himself with instrumental, atmospheric, cinematic music. He released his first solo album in 2021 called Retro Inferno, and he's ready to follow that up with his latest EP, Starfields, which comes out on October 27th through Cadabra Records. He also has a new album coming out with Dog Eat Dog on October 20th called Free Radicals. And here's Dave Neabore to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about Dave Neabore, how would you describe your solo music?
My solo music, I would say, is a very analog synth influence. So I really got influenced at a young age hearing synthesizers from, let's say, John Carpenter's horror movies and the Cars songs where you'd have those leads with those analog synths. And when I heard the music for the movie Creepshow, it was kind of a lot of elements coming together where hearing Rick Wakeman solo records. And even though I was really a metalhead, I just always loved the sound of an analog synth. It was as heavy as a guitar for me. And it was my dream to make music on analog synths for decades. I just really wasn't able to put that kind of time in. And when I was contacted by this comic book company, Ibon Press, to do a soundtrack for their comic for Zombie, it kind of set off my new solo path. It was like, it felt like the time was right. I'm now working in the field that I like, and I'm working in a studio with a producer who knows exactly what I like and what I want. And I was like, well, let's not stop here. Let's keep going. And I made my first solo record, Retro Inferno, after that. So that one was really based in horror, sci-fi, and cult film soundtrack. So that's what I'm really passionate about. I wanted to make a full record that really explored my passion for that type of music. And that was a big project, but it was my first, and getting that first solo record under your belt, I feel now I can move on and kind of do anything I want.
Your latest solo album, Starfields, comes out on October 27th through Cadabra Records. This is all instrumental. When you go to compose something like this, do you have an idea where you want to go thematically or atmosphere-wise? I'm hearing time and space on this album.
Right. So actually, it does have one song with vocals on it. So it's the first song I ever did solo with vocals. The way I just come up with the concept first. After Retro Inferno, I knew, okay, I know I want to do a 4-song EP. That much is clear. What style is that going to be? And I kind of think about it, and it doesn't really form until I get into the studio and actually start working, and then you kind of see what you're working with. So Starfields was, out of all the records I've ever made, probably the easiest record to make, which the ideas just came out so quickly. I will usually go to the studio and work with my producer Walt, and I'll bring in some CDs of some music that I'm thinking about, and we'll kind of listen and say, okay, well, here's a track by Carpenter Brute. I love this song. I don't want to imitate this, but I want to take some elements of what I like about it and kind of put that in. Or I'll play an old ELO song and go, listen to the vocals on that, or, listen to the keyboard part on that. That's kind of what I want to do. But then we never reference those songs again. We never A/B them with my track. That's just at the very beginning, just to get the idea. And then we just turn the keyboard on and start hitting keys. And Starfields to me was like it came out of nowhere. It just, every time I sat down in front of the keyboard, the songs were making themselves. It was very strange, but I'm really happy about that experience because I've never had such ease in putting songs together. And even with all that ease, it still took a year to make those 4 songs.
You mentioned your producer, Walter Kazmier. Obviously good to have a second set of ears to kind of throw ideas off of, right?
Oh yeah. So I am I'm an idea guy. I hear music in my head. I know what I want. I'm pretty clear about it. I just don't turn the knobs. I'm not a computer person. Computers and me don't get along. Electronics and me, every time I touch them, it basically says error. So I need to work with somebody who's tech savvy, somebody who knows how to use computers, knows how to use their equipment. And Walt is that guy. He's just an absolute master, and he's got patience of a Zen master as well. And so when you have a very patient, very knowledgeable producer to work with, that's going to make the process so much easier. So Walt and I have been together now for going on about 7 years. And when you find that partner, you don't let him go. So we will continue to work together until he can't stand me anymore.
Is Starfields going to remain a standalone EP, or are you looking to expand it into a full studio album in the future?
No, I'm definitely going to move on. So eventually I will try something new. I think with my solo work, I know it's going to be synth based, but I'm already toying with the idea of doing like some death metal songs, and I've got ideas that are all over the place. Some old rejected Dog Eat Dog songs that I've always had still going in my head that I'd love to record, even if I do it my way. So I'm really not like putting any kind of strict plan on what I do. I kind of feel like after Starfields, I'm working on another comic book right now. I have another comic book soundtrack coming out. So I'm actually doing a lot of work. That's not what I would call it's me. So it's solo, but I'm hired by somebody to do the work. Which I enjoy doing. So I don't know what I'm going to do next. It definitely is not going to be an expansion on Starfields, but I may do a single that's just one song with vocals or something in the future. The less you do, the easier it is to finish that project, and the quicker it can actually come out. So when you go into a project with 10 songs or 12 songs and you're meticulous, it takes a really long time. And I don't know how much patience I have to spend years working on something at this point. I did it already, and now I feel like the fast track is the way to go with new music.
Starfields is being released through Cadabra Records. Is this your own imprint?
No, Cadabra Records is a real label that's just past their 100 release mark. So they've released 100 albums on that label, and they do incredible work with spoken word artists. So they'll have a celebrity reading a famous piece of literature, usually horror based, and then they'll have composers doing like a score behind that. And that's what they became famous for. And their packaging of their records is just so incredible. The artwork and the quality of the records. So when I made Retro Inferno, I basically did it on my own. I paid for everything. And then I kind of just reached out blindly to every label that I really was a fan of. So it's not the normal way to do things, but I didn't know what to do at the time. So, hey, it's Dave. Here's my new album. Let me know if you like it. And I sent that to my 20 favorite labels. And Cadabra got back to me immediately and were like, we love this and want to put it out. So they were in my top 3. So I was like, hey, that's a dream come true. Because I know the quality will be there. It may not be mass produced records, but they're, when you actually pay your money for it and get it and hold it in your hand, you can feel the quality of it, and the sound quality is incredible. So I was extremely happy to work with Cadabra, and I figured it would be a one-off. And then when I did Starfields and I sent it to them, they jumped on it immediately and were like, we want to put this out too. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to argue. You know, the worst part about it is waiting for the records to get made. When you have a finished song and you have to actually get those vinyl records produced, it took 8 months. So it's really hard as an artist to know your work is done, but you can't share it with anybody because you're waiting for vinyl records to get made. And that's the hardest part. And now the records, I haven't actually seen one yet, but I've seen the pictures of them. So I know it's almost real. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be in Europe, but it will be out. And when I get home, they'll be waiting for me.
And Cadabra is kind of known for these fantastic vinyl packages, with vinyl kind of making its resurgence today. You got a couple of cool looking vinyls for this album. You had a cool looking vinyl for the last album. Are you a big vinyl guy yourself?
I am. I have a lot of records. I mean, when I was younger, in my teens and you know, let's say the late 80s, I was buying every hardcore thrash metal punk record. That was really my thing. I was just, you know, I needed every metal record, everything. And I got a pretty big collection, and then I sold a lot of it, probably in the early 2000s. The thing that my prized collection of vinyl is my soundtracks. And I have collected hundreds of vinyl soundtracks. The old ones were the ones from, you know, back in the 80s, when that stuff, nobody wanted it. It was all just sitting in Tower Records, you know, easy to get. Now some of those horror movie records like Halloween, Videodrome, the original Creepshow, the original Maniac, those records are worth $100 now. I've got them all, but I bought them back in the day when they were $7 or $8. Nobody cared about them. Nowadays, the new wave of soundtracks has got incredible colored vinyl, gatefold, beautiful. They're expensive, but a lot of those are putting out soundtracks that were never released ever, even back in the day. So like those are the ones I'm super excited about. And I've got a good amount, and once in a while, you know, I'll pull one out like the other night, and I hadn't seen it in a while. And then when you pull the record, you're like, whoa, this record, the coloring is so beautiful. It was like a purple splatter, I don't know what. And I just forgot that record was even there. So, you know, as I go through the records, I get to see these colors again, and they are beautiful. I'm definitely a fan of colored vinyl, but it's not the reason I buy an album. I'll buy a record if I want to hear it on black vinyl any day of the week. I'm fine with that. But it is nice to get a good color. So when I put out my records, we're doing it in the Gotta Groove factory, which is like considered among the best record factories. And they do what's called Wax Mage records, which are handmade records. And if you ever look it up, they're the most beautiful colored vinyl you'll ever see. I mean, they're intricate, and fortunately, Retro Inferno got a Wax Mage. I think there were 25 records made, and also Starfield's got a Wax Mage. I don't know what it looks like, but I know it's sold out already. So I hope they put one aside for me.
I'm a big colored vinyl guy myself. If it's something that's pressed new, I'll get it at colored vinyl. If it's something that's not yet available on colored vinyl, then I'll go with the used black vinyl.
I agree. It's not a deal breaker, but it's nice to have.
You mentioned a lot of, you know, horror stuff. You're wearing a Day of the Dead shirt, and you're really big into horror from what I understand. And that was reflected in your last solo album, Retro Inferno, little more sinister than Starfields, right?
I wear a horror t-shirt nearly every day of the year, except if I'm sitting on an island somewhere, then I might actually put a blue shirt on and scare everybody. But when it's October, there are strict rules that I follow. And, you know, that's my wardrobe is part of it. But, you know, even though I'm completely into horror, musically, I love things like Vangelis and Tangerine Dream and Kitaro and Tomita, and you know, there's a softer side to Dave as well. And I listen to a lot of orchestral music and even classical music. So it's horror all the time in October, but outside of October, I've been known to watch a comedy now and again. And like I said, musically, I love melody, and I love more than just sinister music, but you can be sure you're going to hear more horror music out of me. It's coming. I've got a soundtrack to Zombie. The original movie was turned into a comic book, and I scored the 4 issues for the sequel to Zombie. And I did that years and years ago, but the comic book company was bought by Vinegar Syndrome, and now everything is being re-released. And when the zombie comics are now re-released, they put my music. I recorded 3 more songs, and it's coming out on vinyl next year as well. So that's going to be a big release, especially on Vinegar Syndrome, which is a label that I love and buy their stuff. So just, having their name on something I did, I'm very excited about that. So there's already a bunch of releases in 24 coming.
Beyond comic books, have you looked into scoring an actual horror movie? I feel like Retro Inferno could set the soundtrack to maybe a good Roger Corman B movie. That's
my goal. And I have worked in some movies already. I don't have a huge resume, but I did a low budget zombie movie, and I did some bits and pieces of movies, short films, things like that. So I haven't done a feature film front to back yet, but I do have some irons in the fire. I've got some directors who know that I'm waiting to go. And as with anything, making movies can be very difficult, and the process takes a long time. And you could be a director and have all intention to make a movie, but then hit snags along the way, getting the budget for the movie, getting the cast and crew together and a schedule together. It could be very difficult. So I'm kind of waiting, and I truly believe that the work that I'm doing now I will be rewarded with that opportunity to do a horror movie. And it's what I was born to do. And everything I'm doing now is just working up to that moment. So I'm ready. And when that call comes in, I will deliver for sure. I feel like a Jersey guy like yourself would be on the short list of Tromaville for their next movie. I would be honored. I'm a big Troma fan. I don't judge a movie by its budget. Give me trash. I don't care. I'll make it great, because I've just studied film and all levels of budget and horror movies and cult films. And it's just, it can't be for nothing. So I'm waiting patiently, but I think if I just keep making this music, I've already put my music in a pretty well-known producer's hands. He knows I exist, and he worked with Troma and as well. So like I'm one step away from that. As a horror fan, do you attend kind of these horror conventions that they have going on throughout the country? Me and my son, we attended quite a few over the last few years. I would imagine they're a little bigger in New Jersey than they are in Massachusetts. I have been going to every horror convention I can go to since my first one in 1985 in New York City, the Fangoria convention, and I was hooked. This is where I'm supposed to be. I'm among my people. I feel good. So between Fangoria, Schiller Theater, Monster Mania, and any other one that's popped up, New Jersey Horror Con, there's been some that have come and gone. You will definitely see me wandering the halls and dealer rooms of conventions. I consider it my happy place. I get so excited when I'm going to a convention. Sometimes I have to take Valium just to calm down enough to walk through, because I start getting crazy looking at everything, and I can't even concentrate because I just get so excited. So really, if you hang out with me at a convention, you'll see a different side of me. Somebody who's extremely excited and kind of funny. But one day I'm thinking about becoming a dealer at one of these conventions, because I've accumulated so much stuff over the years that I've now basically got a store in my house, and I don't know what to do with it all. It's just hundreds and hundreds of items related to horror movies. So one day I'm going to have to get rid of them. So I think a horror convention dealer table will be the best way to give back, so to speak.
You got some fantastic artwork on Starfields by Eric Adrian. Did he also do Retro Inferno?
No, Retro Inferno was done by Pat Carbajal, the artist who works on the Ibon comic books. So I loved his art, and I wanted him to do the art as well. On the new one, I actually had nothing to do with the art. Eric is a friend with Jonathan from Cadabra, and Jonathan said, "Hey, what do you think of Eric?" And I love his stuff. So, a lot of the Blu-rays that are coming out now, horror Blu-rays, he does like the slipcover artwork or the new alternate art. And I've got a lot of his art in my collection already. So when he was basically offered, I jumped and was like, yeah, absolutely. And they just showed me the cover as it is, and I said, okay. It was the least I've ever had to do. And every other album I've ever worked on, I've been very involved with the artwork as well. But with Starfields, I was just like, it looks good, let's go. So again, Starfields has just been the easiest project that I worked with. There's been no snags, and it's nice after making record after record with problems to have one that slips through so easily. And I just hope people listen to it and enjoy it as much as I do.
Music wise, you got a busy 2 weeks coming up. Just before you release Starfields, you got the new Dog Eat Dog album, Free Radicals, that comes out on the 20th. I interviewed John Connor about the album a couple of months ago. You must be just as excited to put out new music by Dog Eat Dog. I mean, you had an EP recently, but it's been a long time since you had a full studio album.
Exactly. 17 years between studio records, full records. And it is very exciting. It was such a long process. It was not an easy process. It was a lot of, not only writing, because we didn't have material left over. So everything on this record, we started from scratch. And then the recording process, we recorded in Switzerland. So in between playing shows, we would go to Lausanne, Switzerland, or Zurich in the first half and throw down some ideas and then come back a few weeks later. So the process of doing the record was really piecemeal. It was never done like, okay, all the drums in one day, all the bass. No, it was done like a jigsaw puzzle, little pieces at a time. And we had to put those together. It was not an easy process. So then when you finally finish that process and you made it, it was such an incredible feeling to just have a new record and actually, it's there. And then again, you have to wait 3 or 4 months, but at least between the time you hand it in and the time that it's actually released. So that's the worst time for an artist, is sitting and waiting, knowing it's done. You did everything you could do, but you're powerless now to do anything except wait. And, now that it's 2 days away from finally coming out, it's very exciting because I want everyone to like it, but I think the real reward of this Dog Eat Dog record is just knowing the fact that we actually can make a record as a group. Like, we can write songs and we can record them and make them good. We're not past that point in our career yet. And just knowing that if we wanted to, we could turn around tomorrow and start writing another record, and we know we would complete it. That's the thing that makes me the most proud, is we as a band, we could have fallen apart years ago. We could have given up years ago. We didn't need to make another record, but we wanted to, and we made a good one. So that makes us really excited, and it builds the bonds of the guys in the band stronger. Like, we can walk around a little bit stronger now, knowing we just did like an equivalent of going to battle or to war and surviving. And that's how it feels. And now the fun part is sharing it with the fans. The fun part is actually, having somebody walk up to you with the album, like, it's there, it's real. And it's such a great feeling for a musician to just see their music in the hands of a fan, and have them love it. And so on this upcoming tour, we're doing, 3.5 weeks. We're doing, I think, 20 shows coming up. And every night we're going to have that opportunity to hear what people think about it and to play those new songs and see the reaction. So it feels good because it's new, everything's fresh. We're not just going back and playing the same songs we played for 30 years. And that gives us a re-energized feeling about this run.
Even though it's been some time between Dog Eat Dog studio albums, you guys remain a touring force overseas. You're going to be starting your Free Radicals tour October 27th through Europe. A lot of Dog Eat Dog's fan base is in Europe. They've really embraced the band. That's why you guys are touring over there, correct?
Over the years, our fan base in Europe has become much larger. We don't really even consider the US a fan base. It's more friends, family at this point that come and see us play, maybe some old timers who remember the 90s and whatever. But in Europe, we had a lot of record label support in the 90s. We had a lot of MTV support. We played nonstop. We've opened for some of the biggest bands. We've played some of the biggest festivals in Europe. And because of that, your name recognition is there. And now that we have a new record, it's going to be pushed in Europe. It's going to be more visible in Europe than in the US. So it's something that we've just had to learn to accept, is that Dog Eat Dog's home is really in Europe. And we hope to change that. And with a new record out, there's always that possibility that one of the songs could catch on in this country and snowball into something. Hey, it's possible, but we're not banking on it. We're banking on is being able to continue to tour in Europe, hopefully getting on some bigger festivals, because when you have a new record, you generally speaking have more opportunities, and we want to capitalize on those opportunities and maybe play in some countries that we haven't played in a while or never played in before. The UK is a place that we desperately want to get back to. And at one point we were, we conquered the UK, and now we can't even get somebody to bring us over. So that's a goal that we want with a new record. Let's get back to the UK, and we haven't been to Japan in over 20 years. We want to go back to Japan, and with a new record, it does open doors again. So that's what I'm hoping to do. And hey, if the US can jump onto, we're ready and open, and just like talking to you today, like we've been doing a lot of US interviews. I don't know if that's going to turn into anything, but it's worth a shot.
Have you ever tried to, or have any ideas to take your solo material into a live performance setting?
Actually, I've already been approached about playing this music, but there's no way to play it live. Basically, it's all created in the studio, and it's just layers of synth. So some of the tracks are like 30 layers of synth. How am I going to reproduce that unless I just play it on a computer and then play tracks over it? And I don't really love that idea of kind of playing half of it and the rest is just playing a recording. So what I think is that as I move on as a solo artist, I will create more and more music, and then some of that music may be able to be played with a group of people, maybe 2 or 3 people playing synth, a drummer, and maybe a guitar player, a bass player, or something. So I'm not saying no to that, and I'm definitely keeping the idea open, but I think that's going to be further down the road when I've made more music and, have established myself a little bit more. I think right now it's premature, and there'd be no way to really replicate what I'm doing. And I may never change my style. It may always be, I only work in the studio. This stuff is not played live, but, I would never say never. That's all.
Now, when I talked to John earlier, a couple months back, we talked about Ronnie James Dio appearing on your 1996 album, Play Games. Were you there in the studio when Dio came to record his sections, and did you have any interactions with him?
Totally. We were on Roadrunner at the time, and we were given a pretty substantial budget for the Play Games record. So we were in a position that we could do anything we wanted, and as a joke, John had said, I want the chorus in games to be like really heavy metal sounding. Who can we get? And he was joking and said Dio, but the label was like, let's reach out and see if he'll do it. And we couldn't believe it, but he agreed to do it. He flew out to New York. All of us were in the studio that day with him. We were in awe because, I mean, I'm a huge Black Sabbath and Dio fan, and even Rainbow, and here he is standing in our studio going, what do you want me to do, guys? So we put him to work, and we just couldn't believe it as he was singing. Like the hair on our arms like stood up, like this is on our record. That's Dio in a vocal booth singing our music. When he was done, he was like, okay, what else do you want? And we were like, that's it. Like, we didn't want to push him. Like, he would have done anything we wanted, but we just were like, no, just that. And he was like, before I hit the airport. So he just sat in the recording room with the band, and we literally just sat in like a round group, and he just told stories about Black Sabbath and whatever it was, drinking beer. He had a story for everything, and it was like gospel. We were just sitting there like listening and hanging on every word this guy said. And then after like 2 hours, he's like, all right, I got to go back to the airport now. Thank you guys so much. And it was like, did that really just happen? Were we just hanging out with Dio? So yeah, it was heavy interaction with him. It was an incredible experience. And, it was before the days of like having phones and stuff. So like we were in the moment with him. We didn't like take selfies with him and have video and everything. So like there is a little clip or two that exists of that, and a photo or two, but basically it's in our memory banks now.
You also had rapper RZA on the album. I believe Wu-Tang Clan was just starting to get their footing around that time too. Do you have any interesting RZA stories from the time of the recording?
Kind of the same like with Dio, where it was like, all right, now who else do you want to work with, guys? And John is really the hip hop and rap centric guy in the band. So he suggested RZA, and I thought, hey, that's a great idea. I know the Wu-Tang, but they weren't really that big, like you said. And the RZA came in, and he was awesome. Like, we had already been kind of tooling around with like some basic song ideas, like a something he could rap over, and he kind of came in and he started working with John on like some raps. And like as that was going on, the band was working on like on an arrangement of a song they could sing over, and it all came together actually very nicely and very quickly. And by the end of the night, we had a song, we had verses, and we hung out with the RZA. I mean, he drank, from my recollection, I think he drank 2 bottles of wine while he was working. So, he was loose. And it was an amazing experience. And the song was great. And I'm very, happy and fortunate. And when I tell people, yeah, the RZA sang on my record, they just don't comprehend that. It doesn't, I feel like I'm lying, but it's true. So, that was a great time for Dog Eat Dog. And just prior to that, we worked with Run DMC, with Jam Master Jay from Run DMC on a song. So again, like it's sometimes it's hard to believe the opportunities that we've had and the people we've got to work with. And, I'm such a fan of music that I fanboy, and I'm just in awe of these people. And, I'm super proud to see their names on our record.
You mentioned that you're heading into the studio after this interview. What are you recording today?
So I'm recording a new comic book soundtrack. It's called Diva Jackson. It's coming out. I'm hoping before the year ends, but if not, very early next year. And it's a little bit different from what I've been doing. And this one has live guitar and live bass on it. It's got horns on it. And it's a little more of like a soulful, melancholy track. It's hard to describe, but it's the comic book is fairly complex emotionally. So I needed to capture like the emotion of the main character. It's slightly sci-fi. It's a revenge period 70s period piece. So it's a pretty complicated track that I'm working on right now. I've had to get in some other musicians to help me out to speed up the process because I'm under a pretty heavy deadline. I got to go to Europe the 24th, and I've got to hand this track in by then. So I got to spend the day today arranging and recording. But it's fun. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. When I'm in the studio working, it's probably, besides a horror convention, the place where you're going to see me happiest.
Well, it sounds like you're killing it, Dave. Those are all the questions I have for you today. Your new solo album, Starfields, comes out October 27th through Cadabra Records. Your new Dog Eat Dog album comes out on October 20th through Metalville Records. Both of them sound great. I wish you the best of luck with everything, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk more about it with me today.
George, I thank you as well, and thank you for taking your time to talk to me. I appreciate you very much, and thank you for your time and your help in spreading the word about my music. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank Dave Neabore for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out his latest solo EP, Starfields, out October 27th on Cadabra Records. You can also check out his latest album with Dog Eat Dog, Free Radicals, out on October 20th through Metalville Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform. Take a listen to the albums. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy. Support the artists. For all things Dave Neabore, head over to his official website, DaveNeabore.com. I also want to thank David Brenner at Earsplit PR and Cadabra Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.